Hello everyone, welcome back to Octagon Side with Ahles, and today we're going to talk about the recent announcements of UFC 291 and UFC 292. Dana blessed us with an announcement of the fights that will take place on UFC 291 and UFC 292. Kinda wish we got this announcement in a way that wasn't trying to cover up the Francis Ngannou announcement, but what can you do? Dana's going to be salty about the situation. First, let's take a look at UFC 291. The main card is filled with great fights. Tony Ferguson versus Bobby Green could be a great brawler fight. I hope Tony can get off his losing skid, but if not, I really think Tony should just retire. It's been a rough couple years to watch Tony fight, and I think Father Time is starting to catch up to him. Stephen Thompson versus Michelle Pereira is a great stylistic matchup for Wonderboy. For Michelle's sake, don't pull out Kevin Holland. Don't try to kickbox with a world-class kickboxer. Don't play into Wonderboy's strengths. Take him to the ground. It's shown multiple times that Wonderboy doesn't know what to do once it comes to hitting the ground. He just doesn't. So take him to the ground, get your win, don't get an ego, don't fall into his strengths, get the dub by any means necessary. It's kind of crazy to see Derek Lewis fight Marcos Rodrigo de Lima, an unranked fighter, on the prelims, but unfortunately Derek Lewis hasn't been on the greatest run lately and he's on a losing skid. That's what happens. Maybe Kevin Holland can finally break into the top 15 against Marco Chiesa. It's good to see him after a year and a half off layoff. I think it's a great, entertaining fight. May the best man win. Now let's get into the real surprises of this card. Paulo Costa is going to fight Ikram Aliskerov. Ikram got a big first round knockout in round 1 against Phil Haas, and I guess the UFC really wants to push him now. It was heavily rumored Paulo Costa was going to fight Khamzat Chimaev in October, but I guess that's off, or they're giving Paulo Costa a fight in between since he wants to stay active. I think this fight was also made to give Izzy new contenders since he's the champ again, and now we're back to the old problem, like I talked about in my Izzy video. There's only so much people you can give him now. He's fought almost everybody. The UFC's probably in scramble mode, being like, hey, we gotta get new people to fight Israel, The co-main event of 291 is a big shock. Jan Blachowicz versus Alex Pereira. It's shocking, one, for Alex is coming back this soon, and also he's fighting a former light heavyweight champion. We knew Alex was moving up, but I give him credit for getting back in the mix with a tough opponent. With how weird the light heavyweight division is right now, this could easily be a number 1 contender fight. This fight shows Pereira is eager to fight Jamal and avenge Glover and get the belt back. And it's kind of funny, I'm already seeing memes about people saying, oh, if I can't beat Izzy, I'll beat the guy that beat Izzy. It's kind of ironic. You gotta admit. Good on Pereira for getting back in the mix. It's good to see Blachowicz back again. May the best man win. The main event of UFC 291 sees the rematch of Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. This rematch was inevitable. They both put on some of the most entertaining fights in the lightweight division. The surprise, though, is the UFC is bringing back the BMF belt and making the winner the BMF champion. If you're going to bring the belt back, these two fighters would be perfect fighters for that belt. I'm just confused why they're bringing it back in the first place. Jorge never defended the belt, and if you want to be technical about it, Kamaru was the one to defeat Jorge after gaining the belt, then Leon landed the head kick heard around the world, and beat Usman in the rematch. So doesn't that make Leon the BMF champion? At the end of the day, they're doing this for promotional reasons, but if you're going to bring back the BMF belt, can we have fighters defend the belt? It also seems like the belt will always stay at lightweight or welterweight, somewhere in that range, so it's limited who can actually fight for it. The most entertaining fighters in the UFC tend to be at lightweight/welterweight in that, weight class, weight range, so it kind of makes sense, but it still sucks for the littler guys or even the really huge guys that are, really big stars in the UFC. The BMF title or not, UFC 291 is going to be a great card, and I cannot wait for it. Let's shift to UFC 292. We don't know much about UFC 292, but we know the main and co-main events. I'm kind of confused why the UFC finally booked Weili's next championship fight. I figured they were waiting on contenders to emerge. If they were going to book Weili versus Lemos, why didn't they do that fight months ago? Maybe there was some scheduling issues or a problem with one of the fighters behind the scenes. You never know. Anything could happen. It sucks for Yan Xiaodong. She has to wait even longer after putting on a stellar performance against Jessica Andrade, and that for sure deserves a title shot, but it is what it is. The main event, the fight we've all been waiting for a while now, the return to the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley versus Aljamain Sterling. Like I talked about in the last video, Aljamain versus O'Malley was a no-brainer, but surprised they're making Sterling turn around so soon. It just shows, in my opinion, the UFC is trying to get rid of Sterling and give Sean any advantage he can get against Aljamain. And in an ideal world for the UFC, Sterling loses, Rob finally fights for the belt, and you get Sean as your champion. And it's a huge promotion in itself. I don't see Sean winning, but it's MMA. Anything can happen. What do you all think of the announcements of UFC 291 and 292? Thank you all for listening. I'll see you all next time on Octagon Side with Grant Ahles.